Hey races, and welcome to another live stream. And this one's a special one for FINKE. So I have quite a few guys that I'm getting ready for FINKE this year, and also HADA. And it's something that I put a lot of time and effort into over the years. So it's been since 2015. I first started getting guys ready for big races, and especially FINKE, which is definitely a big one for the enduro scene, desert racing scene. So today's topic for today's live stream is the two types of cardio that you're going to need for FINKE for this year. So I'm going to go through a couple of types. I'm going to give you, hey Jason, give you a couple of examples of exercises that you can use or workouts that you can implement. Before I get into that though, next week I'm going to be running I've never done this before. I'm going to be running a online live FINKE prep webinar, meeting, event, whatever you want to call it. So pretty much what I'm going to do, normally I was planning on just doing it with the group of racers that I work with, in terms of going through all the nutrition, mapping it all out for them. I've got all in a fancy PDF, so they know exactly step by step what they need to be eating, what time they need to be eating, what meals to have, what foods to have, how to hydrate, what to do at fuel stops, the works, what to do for workouts, what to do with training the week before, how much time to spend on the bike, all of that sort of stuff. And normally I just do that for the group of racers that I work with, but I thought since I'm planning on doing it online, I'd open it up to you guys as well. So if you would like to jump on the pre-sale list for tickets, what you can do is click on the link that I just posted up now in the comments. Hopefully it comes up. And you can click on there and put your details in. And then when I release the tickets, because there's only going to be 30 tickets, then you can be one of the first people to get access to the tickets. So if that's something you're interested in, you'd like to jump on board, click the link that's in the comments there for the pre-sale list, and you'll get a notification earlier than everyone else. So once the 30 tickets are snapped up, they're snapped up, because online events get a bit out of control when you have too many people on them. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to jump on there. But I'm going to get into today's topic. So when we're training for FINKE, right? So first of all, depending on your ability, depends on how hard and how long the event is going to be. If you're a very fast rider and you're right up the front, it could be 2 hours, or I've heard this year so far from numerous people that have been pre-running that the track is very fast. So we could be seeing some new times, much faster times than what we've seen in previous years. But going on previous years' times, if you're right up the front, we're looking at about under 2 hours that you're going to be spending on the bike. If you're at the other end of the spectrum, I think the cutoff is 4.5 hours, if I remember correctly. It's either 4 or 4.5 hours, I can't remember. But that's a very different race for you, okay? Doing a 2-hour race and doing a 4 or 4.5 hour race are very different races and very different experiences. And that just comes down to your ability and your speed. Obviously, riding for 4.5 hours is quite tough in comparison to being out there for 2 hours. So what do we need to work on? Two types of cardio. So from a strength and conditioning perspective, there's two types. There's anaerobic and there's aerobic. Okay, and both of those are different types of cardio. What anaerobic is, anaerobic cardio or conditioning, or the anaerobic system, doesn't use oxygen. Okay, it uses energy that's already available in your body, ATP, which is your body's fuel, which is floating around, to be able to get you performing. Aerobic is where your body does use oxygen, okay, to help to break down carbs and energy to be able to keep you going. Now, the difference between those two, okay, is obviously if we had our way, we would just not use oxygen, and we could just go use our anaerobic system the whole time. Each of these systems is based on the intensity that your body is using at a specific time. So if we're operating at 100% intensity, okay, so in other words, your body is giving absolutely everything it possibly can, it's using the anaerobic energy system. Okay, so this is where oxygen is not able to get into your body quickly enough to break down energy, so your body has to use readily available energy. Now, your body can only keep you at this high intensity for a short period of time. It's not sustainable. So the best example I have of this, if you are out on the oval, like let's say we get you out to the oval. So let's say it's me and you, Paul, or me and you, Jason. We go down to the oval, and I say, I need you to sprint, and I just want you to keep sprinting. Okay, there's no finish line, just keep going and going and going. What would happen is those first couple of minutes, when you're in your anaerobic energy system, would be your fastest. That's when you'd be running at your absolute peak. And then what would happen after those initial minutes is your intensity would start to drop off. So you might be giving it 100% effort. Okay, it's not your effort has dropped off, but your body isn't able to keep up that intensity. And so what happens is its speed starts to drop off. And that's when it starts to flick over to the aerobic energy system. This is where your body is using oxygen to help break down carbohydrates to be able to use as energy. It's not as efficient of a system, but you can keep that pace for a long period of time. Okay, so they're the two. We can last up to 2 minutes at very high intensity, and then after that, we're going into the aerobic system where we're going to use oxygen to start breaking down our energy to use out on the bike. So they're the two types. Now, when we look at FINKE, we're using both of those energy systems. It's not just one or the other. Okay, and this is where I see FINKE riders go wrong, if they just focus on one type of conditioning or one type of cardio or the other, not working on both systems. So when you're racing at FINKE, there's the overall race that we look at, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 4.5 hours. Okay, and so overall, it's an aerobic activity. Okay, we're using oxygen a large part of the time because we're riding for so long. It's definitely over the 2-minute mark. So we're using oxygen. We're riding at a lower intensity. We're not riding at our body's absolute peak all the time because our body can only maintain that for a couple of minutes. So it's definitely an aerobic system when we look at the 2, 3, 4, 4.5 hours. However, during the race, if we take a magnifying glass and really dig into the race, there's parts of the track that will be anaerobic. Okay, and this goes for any track. So there's parts of the track where it's very, very high intensity, where your body is at its absolute peak. Okay, and so an example of this might be like there's a really, really rough whoop section, and the back end starts to kick out. When the back end starts to kick out and get untidy, and you're going over 100 kilometers an hour through the middle of the desert, your body is giving it absolutely everything it has to be able to pull that bike back in line. Okay, maybe it's a last minute push through the finish line. So some parts of the track will be aerobic. So maybe there's parts where you can sit down. There's parts where there's a nice smooth line where you get a bit of a rest. That's probably going to be aerobic. Hey, Emma. Hey, David. Other parts that are going to be anaerobic are those really high intensity sections. Maybe that you see there's a section where it hasn't been, that's not as smooth as the other sections. It's really, really rough, really physically demanding. Then what's going to happen is you're tapping into that anaerobic energy system. Your body's giving it absolutely everything it can to be able to keep the bike straight and keep you on target. So we've got a mixture of both energy systems there. Okay, it's not just anaerobic and it's not just aerobic, it's both. Okay, it has to be both. If that makes sense, guys, please just give me a like on the video to let me understand, let me know that we're on the same page. Now, how do you train both of those energy systems? Okay, how do we get the most out of those? So the way that you train the anaerobic energy system, which is the short, sharp system, okay, the 2 minutes of high intensity, is through interval training. So if we use a rower as an example, this would be like 30 seconds on flat out, 30 seconds rest. 30 seconds flat out, 30 seconds rest. And you could do 8, 10, 12 rounds of that, okay, and work that energy system. The reason the rounds are so short, say like 30 seconds long with lots of rest, is because that's what keeps you in the anaerobic energy system, okay? We're working high intensity. So the intensity is the thing that we're trying to work there. That's what we're working on. To work the aerobic energy system, it's very different. If we were to use a rowing machine again, this would be like doing half an hour on the rowing machine or an hour on the rowing machine, just pulling. Nice steady pace, trying to maintain that pace for a long period of time. That's the aerobic energy system. And that's how you work both of those with different types of training. Now, how do you incorporate that into getting ready to race? Okay, because I know when it comes to racing, right, it's not like football. It's not like you just go and get a set of boots on and get a ball and go down to the park and you're ready to rock and roll. I understand with racing, there's a lot of prep and organization. There's time restraints on the amount of time that you have to train and the amount of time that you have to ride because there's so much prep and logistics and organization, all the other stuff that goes on. So how do you actually implement this to help you with your racing? So what I do with our races, the anaerobic energy system is best trained in the gym, okay? Because you've got controlled variables. It's very easy to work at a super, super high level heart rate and high intensity. So like I said, you can jump on a rowing machine and do intervals. You can go on the treadmill, the assault bike, the assault runner, use a cross trainer if you want, use maybe a stair machine if you really wanted to, an exercise bike, a Concept 2 bike. They're just some of the things. You could do sled runs. If you've got a sled, you can go and do sprints at the park. If you've got a cycling bike, go and do hill sprints. That's how you work that anaerobic energy system. If you want to work that energy system, but on the bike, okay, let's say you're riding the bike heaps and you want to work that energy system on the bike, then the way that you would do that is more like motocross style of riding, right? It's going and doing a couple of sprint laps, 2 or 3 sprint laps, okay, really hard. And then having a break, and then 1 or 2 sprint laps really hard, and then having a break, 1 or 2 sprint laps really hard, then having a break. That's how you work the anaerobic energy system. I don't recommend doing those short of a laps while you're riding, okay? Bike time for a lot of you is very scarce, so I wouldn't do that. I would do your anaerobic training in the gym because it's short, sharp, easy to do. The aerobic energy system, the long stuff, that's where you need to get on the bike, okay? None of you should be wasting your time going to the gym and sitting on the rower for an hour, okay, every day, or running for an hour, okay, or doing any type of cardio exercise for an hour. That's the stuff that needs to be done on the bike. The reason that energy system has to be done on the bike is partly the energy system, but it's getting muscles in your body that are going to be overused, used to being overused, which you can't do any other way apart from spending large amounts of time on the bike, okay, at any one time. Reason I say this, I'll give you an example outside of riding. 2019, I did a rowing marathon, okay, so Concept 2 rower, 42 Ks. Took me, first time I done it, I did no rowing training, no specific rowing training, just did my normal strength and conditioning stuff that I've always done. Nothing specific for the row. It was more just about, can I do this? So the first time I did it, I finished it in 3 hours and 18 minutes. Okay, it took me 3 hours, 18 minutes on that rower, slogging away. Now, in the start of 2020, before COVID in January, I did it again. Now, this time, I did it in 2 hours and 58 minutes. So I knocked 20 whole minutes off my time from the year before, which is quite a decent amount of time to knock off such a big row. Now, what was the difference? What did I do differently from the first one? There was one thing I did differently. One thing. Everything else was exactly the same, apart from this one thing. I did one long distance row every week for about 12 weeks. I think it was between 12 and 16 weeks leading up to the marathon row. One long row. So about 16, I can't remember the exact, might have been 12 weeks out. 1 week I did 5Ks, the next week I did 10, then 15, then 20, then 25, then 30, then 35, then did the big one, okay? So the reason that I did those longer distance rows, and the reason that's the only thing I implemented, is because when I did the row the first time, it wasn't my energy systems really that held me back. I wasn't getting out of breath. That wasn't the real issue. The issue was there was different parts of my body that were getting overused that my body just wasn't accustomed to because I hadn't done any rowing at those amounts of volume. So when I went and did the row the first time, my hips were fucking so sore. My quads into my hips were so fucking sore. I was trying to move my legs and changing my technique on the row just to not feel sore in my legs. My hands were getting sore. Okay, you're getting really sweaty and your hands get soft and you're pulling this handle for 3.5 hours. Your hands get fucking sore. So I was like doing underhand grip and trying to grab the end of the handle because my hands were so sore. The back of my heels, all the skin off the back of my heels was starting to come off because it was really soft and rubbing on my shoe, and there's a bit of a heel rest in the rower. And after rubbing and rubbing and rubbing for so long, it was getting really, really sore. They're the main ones that come to mind for now. Hips were the fucking main one, okay? My quads up through my hips. Even though I've got strong legs, they just weren't used to be, those specific muscles weren't used to being used at such high volumes for such a long period of time. So I knew for my row to get better the second time round, my goal was to get under 3 hours. So I hit my goal by 2 minutes. Is I knew I had to get those areas of my body comfortable with being on the rower for that long. So what did I do? I did those longer rows to get my body accustomed to it. Okay, so I built my aerobic energy system, but I also helped to build endurance in the areas of my body that were not up to the task the year before. Now, how does this apply to riding and racing or to FINKE? It's exactly the same thing. You can do all of the long distance rowing you want, all the long distance cycling that you want. You can do these massive workouts and spend shit ton of hours in the gym. But if you're not doing 2, 3, 4 hour rides on a weekly basis, okay, doing these longer rides, getting your body accustomed to being on the bike, then the fitness isn't going to be the thing that holds you back. It's going to be those specific muscle groups and areas of your body that aren't able to hang on race day, purely because they're just not used to that level of volume. And there's no amount of squats, deadlifts, anything else that you can do that is going to replicate that. Okay, there's no exercise that you can do that's going to replicate getting the hours in on the bike. And the only way you can do that is by getting the hours in on the bike. So simultaneously, by doing those longer rides, you're getting your body accustomed and building endurance with those muscle groups. at the same time as you're also building your aerobic energy system. Okay, so anaerobic training in the gym with your intervals, aerobic training on the weekend with your longer bike rides. Does that make sense, guys? Just give me a thumbs up if we're on the same page there, because I know that's quite a bit of information for one video. So that's really what you need to work on. If there's any questions, you can post them below now, and I'll answer them for you in a minute. And as I was saying at the start of the call, for those of you who jumped on a little bit after, I'm doing a FINKE virtual event, which will be run next week. So it's an online event where the riders and racers for FINKE for 2021, I'm going to go through step by step all of the nutrition that you need to follow, the exact meal plan that I've used with my races since 2015. We're going to go through step by step so that there's no guesswork for you when you get there this year. So you can hopefully walk on day 2, number 1, and enjoy the ride. I'll go through all the stretches I use with our guys as well, because undoing travel is a big part of getting you primed and ready to rock and roll. A lot of riders do all the work to get ready, and then they're stiff and sore by the time they get to race day because they're still tight from the car ride. So I'm going to go through the stretches and exercises that you need to use there. I'll go through the mindset hacks as well that I've used with really high level riders over the years to help try and reduce nerves as well. Okay, when you reduce the nerves, you make better decisions out on the track instead of making dumb mistakes. I'll go through the hydration techniques that I use as well to make sure that you're hydrated all the way through the race so you can finish the race as strong as what you start the race or as close to. A lot of guys dehydrate through the race even though they're getting heaps of water in and their performance just goes like this. It just becomes about survival rather than actually racing. And I'll also take you through the pre-race meal that I use with all of our guys as well in getting them ready. So again, the whole goal is you want to be able to ride as hard at the end of the race as what you can at the start of the race. So if that's something you might be interested in, there's only 30 tickets available because online events get a little bit out of control when there's too many people on them. So if you'd like to jump on the pre-sale list for tickets and get tickets 24 hours early to everyone else, click on the link in the comments, which I already posted up, but I'll post it up again here in case you guys can't see it. Should come up in the comments any second. If you click on the link, put your email in, then you'll get a notification 24 hours earlier than everyone else to be able to grab your tickets. And I'll also be throwing in a PDF as well. It'll be a complete PDF of what to do for prologue day, what to do for day 1, what to do for day 2, the exact stretches, the exact meals to have, what to have at fuel stops, the absolute works. I've been doing this shit since 2015, so you can't not get good at it when you've been doing it that long. And every year I just revise what we're doing and improve things, make little adjustments now rather than big adjustments. So if that's something you're interested in, please click on the link below, join the pre-sale list. Otherwise, look forward to putting more FINKE videos together for you guys. See ya.